So change to init for C#9.
Oh, I want that, yeah.
Chuck's got the first PR up to add binary operator support. So.
Oh.
A little bit. All right, so now we are live. So, all right, so here is the thing. Do you want to walk us through it, Jeremy?
All right, so these are all related. They're related to ACLing on Windows. The first one here is around directory and files. ACL's, at least the current model that we have on desktop, is clearly a Windows-specific thing. And due to the way things are factored and the non-applicability of this to Unix, we shuffled as much of this off into separate assemblies. And we added some methods for each of the ACLs that are brought up in each of these 4 API proposals that allow you to get and then modify the ACL for the relevant object, in this case directories or files. But we did not provide any functionality to provide an ACL when creating objects, in this case directory and files. That has shown up as a problem, primarily for from a stability standpoint. If you're in the case that came up from an internal group was that you create a directory and then an ACL it right after you create it.
Right.
Every now and then you're going to butt heads with like the antivirus.
Yeah.
And you can't set the ACL until the antivirus has let go of it. So it throws a security exception, and you need to add either retry logic for that sort of thing or to write your own team folks to deal with it.
Yeah.
So the proposal here, well, one thing we could do is we could add the APIs back.
Right.
That's not feasible, primarily because some of these things across this layer live down in corelib. File stream being the notable one in this case.
Right.
If we added the stuff back to file stream, we would have to bring down a pretty big closure of security stuff that's not that's Windows specific.
Right.
So the presumption is that that's not really tenable. So the option is to follow the same pattern we've done, which you can see the existing ones that are down at the bottom, where you get set access control, except now we're going to add creation methods.
Right.
That will give you back a file stream or give you back a directory, or create a directory or create a file stream and give you back a file stream with the ACL already set on it in one operation.
And implementation-wise, what is the plan? This would duplicate functionality, or this would somehow have it? Like, what is the plan for this?
So in this particular case, we have a file system class that's like Windows and a Unix specific one, is that we would include that code in both, or at least some portion of that in both of these, because the logic for directory creation is somewhat complicated as far as the error handling on it. And it's the existing directory creation code, this is as far as a concrete example, is already sets the ACLs, it just sets it to an empty one. So it would just be a matter of including the same source code and allowing you to provide internally for own stuff, and allowing you to provide the ACL if you have it, or the security object, right? So, and the same, there'd be a little bit of more refactoring that would need to be done to share the same code to create the handle for file stream. But then we would then use the file stream constructor with the handle that we got.
Sorry, can you scroll up a little bit? What class was this proposed to be on?
It's proposed to be on the existing ACL extensions for this one. So
if I get my cursor on the second screen to figure out how to do this. Yeah.
So yeah, it's file system ACL extensions, yes.
So I understand the argument for why these wouldn't exist in corelib, but systemio.file lives in systemio.filesystem.dll. Why wouldn't the create here just be an overload?
Well, we would have to add this to file system. We haven't done that. This is file system this access control is where this one is.
Right.
So it's while we could technically do it for directory, it seemed to be or tag it on file itself.
Do we have any existing ACL APIs that just deal with paths, or are they always dealing with directory infos and file infos today on full framework?
No, for disk stuff,
yeah,
it's directories and files.
So there's not a regression in the sense that on full framework I can just do it with paths. I always have to take the path, convert it into directory info, file info, and then do the echo stuff on it.
Yeah, you're creating an object of directories and files are the same thing technically.
Yeah.
So is the idea here that this lives in an assembly that is Windows only?
Yes, in the existing system IO file system access control.
I see.
And we've got a couple other assemblies like that for some of these
Yeah.
other ones as well.
So this would not change any dependencies, correct? This would only
Correct.
give you the create methods that we
And one of the advantages of this thing is that we can build a net standard. We can build for net standard for this, so that allows people that are porting to still build net standard libraries that do hackling.
So how do we? But to back to the point that Stephen was bringing up. So implementation-wise, what does that mean? How do we implement the create method without calling into callib's version of file info or whatever file
Sharing
info?
code.
Okay.
Basically duplicated binary code, right?
Yeah,
We
yeah.
have the same implementation. We compile it to two different places,
Yep.
and in one place we add additional stuff to it.
Yeah, and it's not
Fair enough.
it's not a huge amount of code.
Yeah.
And like in this case with file stream, like we would then pass it back to, with the file stream has a constructor that takes a handle. So it would just be a matter of creating the handle and then passing it back to file stream on the other method.
That makes
And
sense.
a little bit of extra like due diligence to make sure that we're matching the same sort of error cases.
So do we already have, like, because you're making an extension method on file security for the last one, like, is there already an instance method in framework on file security that creates a file, or are you inventing
No.
a new paradigm here?
It's new.
Yeah, then I don't think that should, like, doing it as an extension method on file security feels very unnatural to me.
Yeah.
Like the file create API that you're overloading takes the file essentially we want file.create, just it needs to live somewhere else. So I think that these should really just be on a new class and not like same assembly, fine, but like they should be a class that is like the first class citizen for creating stuff with.
Well,
actors
there
on
were
Windows.
two. I think we can do that as well, and I think I discussed it down below briefly or up in the top. But like I do think that there is value from a discoverability perspective, because like people are starting with this security object and they can kind of find their way into this.
I mean, how do they do it today though? Don't they use an overload of directory info.create or something?
Yeah, that's
So
what I
what
think.
for the people on
Not in framework.
on
How do I
framework?
create a directory info?
Yeah,
with
yeah,
handle?
they do it on well, directory info. It's on directory info.
Okay, so directory info, if directory info already has directory info.create that takes a thing, then that's fine. You're making the same API. It's the
It's the file security one that isn't there.
Yeah,
And
I guess I'm. Oh.
yeah,
Yeah,
that one's
I guess
the one
I'm.
that's weird. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Steve.
that looks weird to me too. I guess I'm wondering why did the last two overloads need to exist at all?
the last two.
There are four here. Why do the last two need to
Yeah.
exist at all? Can't you do them with the first two?
Yeah, that's what
They're the ones that take string instead of the info.
Yes.
Right. But I could always say new file info, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so technically you don't need the second ones. It was more about like just
Yeah.
that avoids you from having to create another allocation. But there's so much going on here now. It's not.
Yeah.
critical.
Yeah, there's a ton of work happening here. I think that allocation would be a drop in the bucket, and I agree with Jeremy. If the concern is not having a good place to put these, and so we're putting them on as extensions off of these security objects that don't,
Yeah.
like no one would think to find them there anyway.
Yeah.
I would rather just not have those at all.
Well, we can look at the other ones as well. I'm not hell bent on having those either. But like I think that fits with the rest of them.
Right. Well, if there's in framework, if we already have an instance method on directory info called create that takes a directory security, then that is the same line of code. You reference this new assembly when you go from framework to core. Everything like the same code you wrote just works.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
nobody's going to have ever written a thing that said file security.create file. So we're inventing a new thing here. The invented new thing shouldn't be.
Well, they
an
do have
extension
this thing
method
right
on
now.
file
They
security.
have file. It's file. What that's replacing is file.
Right.
Ideally, what we'd have is a static extension method, and I could put it on file and directory,
Right. Or it would
as
just
opposed
be,
to file info and directory info.
Right, but since
That's
it's
what
not
those
an
were meant to
instance
replace.
method on those types already and not an extension method on those types already, if we want the ones that take a string path instead of a file info or a directory info, those should be non-extension static methods on a type that is discoverable like file. And then I
Said
don't think we
another
can come up
way.
with that.
Said another way,
So we should do
I
it.
could have existing code that would just compile with the above two methods. There is no code I could currently have that would compile with the latter two.
Correct.
I mean, I would even spin it another way. Like, if you ignore compat for a moment, I don't think we would ever create a method on file security, directory security that would create the thing. I think if we were to create those APIs, it would probably make them pure static methods. And I mean, yes, I can see file system ECL extensions dot create something not being a very attractive, home for that. But then we would probably just create a static helper somewhere that would have a nice name, and we would use that one. But
Yeah.
I don't think we would ever. I think, generally speaking, we should never add an extension method, but we wouldn't have ever added the instance method into the same place, because it just feels very arbitrary just to give the API a home.
Yeah, it was all gray and kind of
Yeah.
fudgy, and like the thing I was asking for here was like I need the extension methods on static classes.
Yeah.
Then it would be able to like just
Would be nice, wouldn't it?
yeah.
I mean, yeah, since we can't do that one, like the easiest suggestion is
I
keep the top two, drop the bottom two, and if we need,
I agree with that, and
then
then we can add the dirty, the not so pretty class that's sitting up somewhere that's hard for people to
I
find.
mean, to be honest, if
I don't even think we need the not so pretty class. Just go with the first two.
Well, I agree.
Maybe
That's what I'm
don't.
saying. I'm saying if somebody comes back with an argument with it that like seems convincing, then we can cross
you
that
can
bridge
still
when we
add
get
that,
to it.
yes, somewhere else, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, that seems reasonable. Anything else to say about this? Doesn't seem like it, so let's just take this.
And then, I guess just to confirm, this is, aside from the fact that it's an extension method, the top two are completely signature equivalent to something in .NET Framework.
Yes.
So
I copied and
the parameters
pasted.
in the same order,
There's-
they're the same name.
The thing I did not do is I did not like add every overload.
Sure.
I just did the
Long one.
longest one,
Yeah, that's
and you'll see this in the next one of the other ones. I put like default values on some of them
Yeah,
that
just
had that concept.
making sure we didn't change, like if somebody did it with named parameter invocation, that they will get exactly the same. If they were calling the long one, it will still work. We didn't reorder anything. We didn't change the casing of any parameter names. We are just matching the thing, but now it's an extension method instead of
And I didn't go all out either. I didn't like add create subdirectory, which is another one that we have on directory info. But yeah, I didn't.
That's
want,
fine. That's create subdirectory is just a helper, right?
Yeah, like so.
Yeah.
That I didn't like to be. I didn't try to be Turing complete. I tried to address. I tried to have an API that would allow everybody to change to that API, and if people were using, in most cases, they would just be able to include this and have it work.
Yep.
But there are some exceptions where I didn't want to create 8 different things.
Yeah,
So
like I'm just my position was looks good, assuming it's the same signature. So then instead of assuming, I asked
Yeah.
the question.
sorry, I gave you more response to that. Wanted to be full disclosure there. It's not.
All right, so what I have done, I just wrote everything down. I just said, okay, we want those, we do not want those, and then what Jeremy just said, like we assume it's the same in terms of order and whatever. All right, so then let's talk about this one.
So, if you don't know already, ACLs and Windows are the same for everything as far as like underlying stuff. So this is just going through all the rest of the ACLs. So, Windows is object-based at its core, has an object manager, and everything uses the same security. And in this one, I don't know if it derives. Yeah, this one derives from the generic. Like once we had generics, we actually created a generic base class. This is the only one that derives from the generic one, but all the other ones could have if we would have had generics in the beginning. So I go through the rest of them in here. There's one that I didn't do that we actually did port, and that was registry, because registry was already Windows specific, so we actually did port those full APIs when we did the registry DLL. So
Is there a registry ECL, or is that
yes, there's a registry ACL, and it works the same way as all the other things.
But are they inside of registry? Or-
Yes, they are, because
Yeah.
the registry itself was specific to Windows. We had no reason to not,
Yeah, that's what I
not
thought.
do it. So, this one, we did not port the ACL itself, so the MemoryMappedFileSecurity, and really it does nothing other than derive from object security. There's no real code in that, and there's a set of flags, so we did not port those. So the suggestion is we do port those, and we add them to the file system ACL. Did I do that right? oh, sorry, to, oops, sorry. To the same system.io file system dot, what's the name of it? Access control. So, and add more to that same class for MemoryMappedFile. It's,
I mean,
So
because it's still a file. It's
the feedback here is going to be the same as the other one of we didn't have, there is no MemoryMappedFileSecurity.create from file. So you should not make it extension.
so we gotta. If you can help me come up with a name, then I would still want to put it inside of the file system dot access control.
Yeah, the assembly is good. It just, like, once you have to invent a new call pattern, it should be the call pattern we want it to be, and this I don't think is the call pattern we want it to be. It's an extension method for convenience, but not, again, it's
Sure.
not the way we would design the API.
And yeah, this is one where, like, there is no, all the creation for these are static methods.
Yeah. So my immediate suggestion on this
And I
would be MemoryMappedFile ACL as the class that just then contains these creates. So
Or
you
actually,
have to add 3 letters to your code, and then it works.
I think we could put them on MemoryMappedFile, although it's kind of weird. Yeah, that's weird because like the MemoryMappedFile, there's the constructions for these are static, they're static factories on MemoryMappedFile, right? So it would just be weird to make you create a MemoryMappedFile to do this.
So can I ask you a different question? So file system ECL extensions lives in system.io.filesystem ECL or whatever, right? MemoryMappedFiles lives in system.io MemoryMappedFiles. Well, this means that we add a dependency from that ECL stuff to MemoryMappedFiles? Because that doesn't exist today, right?
No, you would have to include this if you wanted to use the security. That's all, just like you do with the file system stuff.
No, I'm saying file system today, wherever the file system ECL extensions type lives, transitively does not depend on MemoryMappedFiles today.
It won't, no,
So,
because we did not pull the rights in. So
It would have to if it's returning the instance.
Yeah, so we would have to add
wait
the
a minute, my
dependency.
bad. Yeah, so it would have a dependency on it.
Right. So if MemoryMappedFile is already its own package, then why don't we just add these on MemoryMappedFile?
Because we would be pulling in the security dependencies.
So I guess, does MemoryMappedFile work on things other than Windows?
Yes.
That would be why.
And yes, it would add a dependency. We could add another assembly for it, I guess. Like, I was trying to avoid that, and I didn't think this through, obviously.
I mean, that will be to me the question of like, how happy are we with the closure that is added to the existing file system ECL extensions one, regardless of the name of the type. I think probably what I would prefer is coming up with a naming convention, like, I don't know, MemoryMappedFile ECL or something, and then have the static helpers on that guy, rather than having them instance methods.
Sure, and I agree with that part. Like, so MemoryMappedFile ACL,
Yeah, I mean, it's not pretty, but I mean, ECLs are not pretty to begin with.
we call it, well, it's MemoryMappedFileSecurity. Do we want to match the same name? We don't use ACL in any of our terms. It just happens to be what it's called.
Well, we have it like literally on the type you're currently on. We already have the ECL
I guess we
name
do.
in it,
Sorry.
so we already,
We introduced them in court.
we already burned that bridge.
Yeah.
Sorry, my bad.
I mean, like,
The existing security stuff tried to abstract it away like it wasn't like a Windows-specific thing.
yes, but we're being very honest with this. It is a Windows-specific thing.
Yes.
And so I think that on these, making the static entry point for the ones where you can specify the ACL, just making it MemoryMappedFile ACL seems reasonable.
And what's nice about this is the very simple naming convention, and you can pretty much prefix it with the existing type, so discoverability is reasonable.
Yeah.
So MemoryMappedFile ACL, as a general pattern, do we do like helper or anything like that as like suffixes, or do we avoid that?
Because they're all empty words, right?
Yeah.
I mean, utility, helper, base.
Yeah. It's always awkward. I just wanted to ask, and like, so good with MemoryMappedFile ACL as the static class that has the methods on it.
What names will we put this in? Same as MemoryMappedFile?
System.io, where's MemoryMappedFileSecurity?
System.io MemoryMappedFiles.
Yeah, put it in that.
Yeah, it should be in the same, so that if you have the
Same.
same using, like,
Yeah,
you
should
get a
keep-
compile error, you add three letters in the static invocation call.
Well, you would also have to add the dependency, but yeah.
Sure.
I think the dependency in this case is
You-
not bad.
Yeah.
Tools would already suggest it because they would see you were talking about a
Although-
type that only existed in that package over there.
Do we build the other one as net standard?
So what?
Do we build a net standard version of MemoryMap file? That would be the only reason it would be hard to do this, right?
Why would that be hard to do?
Because this one is net standard.
You still haven't fixed that certificate email?
Yeah, but why is that a problem? Because
I don't
basically,
know. I'm just being brain dead here.
I mean, you're basically adding API service, right? The implementation would be Windows
No, but-
specific, but like,
So referencing the other assembly.
I mean, it's same as registry, right? You can you can add reference, you can reference registry from net standard just fine.
MemoryMappedFile,
You can always
the type
add a,
itself is in net standard DLL, so you must have a net standard implementation somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was just trying to make sure I'm not being mental here.
Yeah.
That like I don't add a dependency that makes it that we can't build net standard for this.
No, I mean, like for API surface like this, where basically you just rep p invokes, you can always expose it to net standard. That's pretty simple.
Sure.
What is harder is if
But-
you have a managed API closure that you can't express in net standard, like let's say WinRT API or something like that, right? At that point, you just
You're depending on an assembly that doesn't have a net standard implementation, right?
yeah, which you can't do, right? But like
Yeah.
in this case, you would just say
That was my question.
there's a net standard net standard reference assembly for memory mapped file
Yep.
echo, and then the implementation would throw.
Yeah.
And then you have another implementation that is for Windows that doesn't, right? Like
Yep.
that's how you would model that.
Yeah. So all right. So it added still the file system access control and put it in the MemoryMapped file namespace under MemoryMapped file ACL as static methods.
Unless you can come up with a better name, Steve.
I got nothing.
All right. ACL it is.
Works
Let me
for
actually
me.
just copy and paste what we just said, so we may actually. have this-
That name, just to double check, that name doesn't already exist in NetFX somewhere, does it?
I don't think so.
Good question. If it does, they would put a pin in that.
There's MemoryMappedFile access as an enum, but there's no ACL. Partially because, as Jeremy said, I don't think we've called anything ACL
Until now, yeah.
until the file system ACL extensions.
And the other ones which we're going to see later.
So what do we do with get access control? Probably those would remain extension methods, right? Because that would make sense. Let me actually scroll down on
Yes,
this
scroll down.
overview. So look at the last two ones. They,
Oh,
to
we
me,
don't-
make sense as extension methods.
Yes, although we would put them in. They can live in that same static class, right? The
The new one that we just
new one that
proposed.
we talked about.
Yeah. I would put them all in the same type.
Yeah.
This is one of the pet peeves I have with naming things as extensions is that you basically burn this type name to only be extension methods, because if you ever want to call a static directly, it seems very awkward to say blah 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 extensions dot something, right? And
Yeah.
that's why according to this MemoryMapped file echo, now you can use it for static call sets as well as extension methods, and it looks, reasonable.
So yeah, in this one there is no way to set security for a map file. So this one is different than the others because we import it.
Yeah, but the set access control and get access control are instance methods on frame.
Yes.
Yeah.
So just pointing out that this is the only one where there is no options.
Yep.
Currently. Well, outside of Pete looking. Writing here.
Anything we can do, someone else can do differently. They can do anything differently than me. Yes.
Sorry, I'm just slow at typing notes.
So to play devil's advocate, now that we've reviewed this one and we're adding MemoryMappedFile, do we want file ACL for the file creates, or should we just leave it as the extension methods on file info and directory info?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I pushed Jeremy to put them all up, so whatever pattern we invent, we can actually apply consistently, because I don't like this, oh yeah, here we butchered something as an extension method, so that kind of makes sense, but over here we couldn't, so we have this other weird pattern, right? So I think given that we already have file system ACL extensions and the ones we currently have make sense as extension methods, I think it's not too bad. What I wanted to avoid was like
the ones that we said we would delete, or the
those ones, yeah, we could introduce an ACL type and put them as static helpers. I mean, this would be if somebody actually cares, but given that the API never existed, like I don't think anybody actually cares.
So that the API does exist in that it takes a string on file and directory.
So where does the API exist today?
On file and directory.
Static
so system.io files.
Oh, the actual static method. Okay, yeah, in that case we could have file ACL, directory ACL, and put them there.
Yeah, but since you already have to change your code, it seems simple enough to create a directory.
Yeah, so we can defer those until
somebody cares. Yeah.
Do create.
Rabble.
I want to solve as much as possible without solving every way to do it.
Yeah. All right.
Real party when we break our 500,000 API.
Okay, I'm all for that.
All right, so then let me paste this guy in here.
We should get peanut brittle.
I find.
We can do either of these things without having 500,000 methods.
It wouldn't be system.io in this case. This was the namespace of the
System.io memory mapped files.
Oh, did I fuck it up?
No,
Yeah, I did.
you just did what you said instead of, or you did what we all said instead of what we all meant. So.
Yeah, I don't want to hide the comment. It's not that bad yet. System.io.MemoryMapped. Let me actually copy and paste this so I'm not fucking this up.
Oh, we're creating a new assembly? I thought we weren't going to.
I thought we did, no?
No, we're just creating a new type in the same assembly.
We were going to introduce the dependency. We checked to make sure that the other one was...
But what does it mean now when you deploy to Linux? Didn't we say we didn't want this?
You don't deploy to Linux.
This whole assembly only works on Windows.
But what is this assembly in your world?
File System Access Control DLL.
So that's why I asked earlier, like file system access control today doesn't depend on memory files. Are we okay with adding that dependency?
That's what I...
Yes, memory map files come from net standard. It's effectively no dependency.
Oh, okay, no. In that case, never mind.
Inside core, it may be a different DLL, but like, as far as anybody's really concerned, it's not. The linker and tree shaker may disagree, but.
All right, so then how about this?
Yeah, that looks right.
All right.
Well, are those the correct signatures now?
I need to fix the ordering because
Yeah.
the security is actually a thing.
Oh, we ordered them in order to make
only to put because it was this had to be there. That it's not dead last in all those cases, so I need to move that to wherever it is.
Yeah, so it should match the signature from MemoryMappedFile in .NET Framework. Just have the word activate.
Can you edit my comments? Probably, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, then just edit my comment with the right one.
So I edited one of your comments like 2 weeks ago, and then we had conflict.
Oh yeah, that's
when
right.
You tried to update it. That's right.
Yeah, don't edit my comments while I'm editing the comments.
It should show a diff. It should have resolution, like conflict resolution in the browser.
I like your confidence on GitHub. Alrighty, so then we have this one. Next one.
Pipe, we don't have it either. And like pipe, we actually have we have an assembly already and it's in System.io pipes. I don't know why we didn't do it differently in this case, but because we provide pipes for Unix as well.
Alrighty, so then
So
we
we already
this
have a
one.
pipes ACL extensions. We would be adding.
Next one.
Actually, no, we wouldn't be doing that because we said we don't have it either, right?
Same
So
pipe.
we need to add a pipe.
How do you
Pipes
currently
ACL.
create
We have
the,
an assembly
like, what is
already,
this pretending to be? Is
for
it pipe dot create anonymous pipe server
System.io.
stream?
Yes. So we need to do the same thing we did the other one and provide pipes ACL class, static class. In this case, and it'll throw on Unix because we provide this one for both.
Is it pipe? 'Cause I don't see a pipe type in.
No, it's name pipe. Or no, they're on both. They're on an where is it?
Scroll down.
Anonymous pipe. There's anonymous pipe. They're on anonymous pipe server stream and name pipe server stream. Actually, that's where those constructors are.
Okay, so then anonymous pipe client stream ACL dot.
So do
Then-
one for both. So
Yeah.
two classes.
Yeah, I mean, again, the pattern is you had the code working in .NET Framework, you move to .NET Core, you add 3 letters, now you're done.
I agree.
So, same method name, same parameter ordering.
Sorry, the naming for pipes is awkward,
Yep.
to say the least. Now we've made it more confusing with our other pipe concept.
Those are lines of pipes.
Yeah.
These are just standalone.
This is the thing you go to the hardware store for, and the other thing has natural gas in it.
I remember the first reviews for that was the one thing I asked, was that you don't call it pipe. Pipes. No, don't.
Okay.
I mean, did you really expect this group to come up with a good name? Come on.
Okay. So is it? So do you need it for the anonymous one and the name one, or just the name ones?
Both.
Okay, so you need 4 methods.
What?
Well, because in
There's 2.
framework there is anonymous pipe server stream, anonymous pipe client stream, named pipe server stream, and named pipe client stream. So
I don't think the other ones,
take
the
ACL.
clients take ACLs.
Okay, so you just need, so it's named pipe server stream ACL dot create.
Yes.
Okay.
And anonymous pipe server. So only the server stream has the ACL on
That wouldn't be horrible.
it. I'm pretty sure.
But are these
But they
these
all.
are constructors, not
Yes,
static create methods on those types.
correct.
So this is already, it's
Awkward.
more than 3 letters different.
And you said that for a client pipe, there's no concept of an ACL?
No concept of creating one with a given ACL. You can. They all create a pipe stream,
Okay.
and you can change the security on pipe stream. Don't know why we didn't do it for the clients. I haven't
Thinking
really
ahead.
played with this in depth, so there might be something I'm not thinking of at the moment.
Sure.
Where it doesn't really make sense to change the ACL on the client side. It actually seems a little odd.
Is a pipe access rights, is that a ACL thing, or is that a I want to read?
I think that's read right, if I remember correctly.
Okay, so this one is,
Yeah.
we need to replace constructors.
Correct.
Sure, but what's wrong with this pattern then?
Yeah, ACL and create seems fine. Just
I mean, like it seems like the most straightforward translation. I have no idea what the order is, by the way. I just made them on
Yeah,
extension.
I need
But it's probably the
the
same.
in this case, I think the security is like after the out buffer size.
Yeah, I would think so.
It's somewhere.
It's not dead last.
No, because that would be straightforward.
It's before handle inheritability.
Yeah. I think it's in the same as both of them.
Yeah. So that means we should.
Yeah. It's sad that it's more than 3 letters, but I don't have a better answer.
Well, we can put an A on the end instead of ACL and make it .c.
It's not actually what I care about.
Have I told you about Hungarian?
Because if the anonymous pipe server stream and name pipe server stream types aren't sealed, we could derive from them, but that'll probably make all of this functionality a lot harder instead of easier. So
Yeah, that's going to cause various issues.
yeah, so
Yeah.
so thingy ACL.create seems fair.
All right then. Let me. Hit the right one. So we're happy with this one then?
Modular parameter order.
Yeah. Oh, that's the comment I have, but yeah.
No, I'll fix it. Everything should be extension methods.
All right. So then, last one.
So this one has its own assembly, system threading access control, similar to the file system one. We just don't have creation for them. And again, all these things, well, I don't know if all of them. Mutex for sure lives in core libs, and another one that can't really go down. But we would change this to match the same pattern as the other one I have in this extension. EventWaitHandle ACL, Semaphore ACL,
Yep.
Mutex ACL.
And I assume again this is what framework had was constructors, and what we're going to have now are create methods.
I think
That's the pattern we've done.
so. I'm pretty sure that it's been like 2 days since I looked at this. So no, I'm pretty sure they're all construct. They're all. I know these have. I don't think there are any static methods. I think it's all constructors on these. There's a lot of constructors on them. Mutex in particular. Now there is a caveat with this thing. The thing I didn't add was there is no way. This one is awkward because we don't provide the way to provide a handle. So to Mutex and Semaphore and EventWaitHandle, we can open an existing one, but they have to be named. So you can create a mutex that's unnamed. Now, I don't think this is a problem because from the trying to do things securely. Because if you don't have the handle to an unnamed one, you can't access it anyway. Right. So creating an unnamed one and then doing set ACL on it is fine. Nobody's going to interject themselves in there because they can't get a hold of the other one anyway because you haven't given them the handle for the thing that you created.
But they can enumerate the handles, no?
Huh?
They could enumerate the handles.
Not necessarily. You would have to give the handle duplicate permission and then hand that off to another process.
So
If you wanted proper
Well,
access.
because the handle is local to your process anyway.
Yes. Well,
I thought these
Yes.
are global objects, no?
the named stuff is global, but the handle itself is unique. The handle that you have is unique to your process.
But isn't there a generic, like, enumerate objects Windows API where the other guy would get its own handle to the same thing, no?
No,
Not really, yeah.
in order to access something created by another process, the other process has to give you rights to it.
How's the debugger doing that?
The debugger calls a special API, which is I'm a debugger and I'm attaching to this process, which anyone can do. But I mean, if you have permission to debug a process, like you're effectively
No, I mean,
admin
if you
S.
have permanent debugger,
Yeah.
you still have access for everything, right? So you don't have to attach to any process. And you don't have to duplicate the handle.
Yeah, you have to run elevated to look at stuff.
So
Like that's how system works,
I see.
for instance.
So the Mutex create, if you gave it,
So
A
you
null
cannot
empty
view
name.
all objects unless you're running for
Right. but so the Mutex create that we're adding here, are you going to say if the name is null or empty, throw a platform not supported exception?
Correct.
Okay.
If,
Making
if,
sure I
if,
understood the behavioral implication.
if we find that we do need to add this, we would have to add new API to Mutex and the other ones that actually take that allow you to construct it with an existing handle.
Or do evil sneaky things, but yeah.
Yeah, something terrible. But
So then-
we can do terrible if we have to.
So where are we landing with this then? Are we're not making them extension methods, are we?
No, we're
No.
applying the same formula.
Yeah,
so
so it
it'll
would be,
mutex_ACL.create.
so we would have event handle,
Semaphore
echo,
ACL.create.
EventWaitHandle, ACL.
mutex, echo.
This isn't Hungarian, it's German, isn't it? Naming convention.
The German naming convention?
Just keep stringing the words together.
German adjectives are suffixes on the noun, right?
You asking complicated questions, man. I don't think of my language in those terms.
I'm
Same with
thinking
all you
in terms
ask me
of the
random
terms of,
grammar
like,
questions.
just keep
I'm like, I
putting
don't
stuff
know.
together.
Is the blue car
Don't abbreviate it.
the car blue or
It's the blue car.
but blue car's one word?
No, it's not.
No.
What? Everything I thought I knew about German just went out the window.
It's complicated, man.
So you could be like the rest of us and just claim to know nothing about German. Life is so much easier.
All you need to know is that all roads lead to Ausfahrt.
That is true. The same in the US, by the
Yeah.
way. The biggest city in the US is called Exit, right?
No, it's just the most common city.
I see. Alright.
I take that back. I did play Ticket to Ride, so I know a little bit of German.
And certainly everyone's played Der Siedler von Catan.
Alright.
Oh, sorry, I learned that V should be pronounced as an F. Der Siedler von Catan.
So, happy with this?
So we said null or empty is a not supported exception.
Was platform not supported, is what you said?
I mean, because it worked. Again, if we pretend that we had to create on, instead of a constructor on framework, then giving the null name creates the anonymous mutex,
Right.
or creates an anonymous mutex. We're saying that we can't apply the security, or are you saying that you would just create it and apply it with setACL? So it wouldn't be atomic. It would. Like, I'm okay with that. I just want to know what, like, we need to think about what we're doing before we do it. And so if we're going to make it not work and that you have to call setACL yourself, then it should be PNSC. If we're
Yeah,
gonna make it work, then we
I
need
wouldn't
to-
want to, like, I think that would break, like, I think about the contract of these things being that it is atomic. Right,
Yeah.
if we introduced that, then it would be confusing, because it'd be like, well, they're mostly atomic except for this.
Right. So if mutex ACL was, if you were trying to use it to create an ACLed anonymous mutex, we're going to PNSC until people complain.
And you're treating the empty string as anonymous.
I believe the public, there's so many constructors in that thing. The public, I believe you can pass in internally it passes a null through to the helper method, but I think you can pass the null in, because there is one that doesn't take a string.
I just glanced and I saw it took a name and then it said if the name's not null and it's too long, throw, and I didn't see anything that checked. is the name too short?
Okay,
So-
all right. So like that was the part I wasn't totally sure about.
But I didn't follow it. I just looked in the constructor.
Yeah, yeah. So yes, apparently that's true.
I mean, just something to double check.
Yeah.
Right.
So other than that, good to go then. If I can find, I clicked it on the wrong window and now I screwed myself because I have to look at this TV that,
I guess the quick ask would be,
come on.
just because I don't see nullable enable at the top, we don't accept null for any of these. Except for maybe name, which we said you could have nameless ones, in which case that should be nullable, right?
Probably.
Regardless of that, like we haven't annotated any of these libraries yet. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
But I would expect security probably is nullable, right?
Have we annotated pipes?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Wasn't that one of those things we just did? Yeah,
Pipelines is currently in review.
Okay,
Okay.
pipelines, so maybe that's why.
Getting back to my earlier.
Keep them straight.
Yeah.
No, no, those are
Right.
pipes
So
and
like
lines.
the, I mean, yeah. So the Mutex constructor that takes a Mutex security allows it to be null.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought security is all these ones were supposed to be forwarding from the other constructors, and I thought they just accept now. But
Yeah. So probably everything's null.
yeah, but you know, we can couple this and we actually annotate them. All right, sweet. So then let me
There
actually.
was only one other ACL, and we had a discussion about that wasn't necessary to have. If that comes up again, we'll deal with it, and that's crypto ACL.
Since the only place that you can use one of those, I mean, we can add the type. The type's fine, but the only place that you can get one is a property on the deprecated crypto types. So I don't think it's worth adding them.
Yeah.
But
So
we can add the type so someone can marshal it.
I think we can cross that bridge when we get to it, and like we already answered the question of whether people need it from a functionality standpoint. If they run into it from they need to be able to compile, then we can do that.
If I recall correctly, I've only gotten one question in the history of .NET Core of ACLs for CAPI, and
You know, to be clear,
two for CNG.
people don't ask much about any of this because once you get to talking about ACLs, it drops off most of the planet.
Yeah.
But it does come up for people that are writing big enterprise apps, like some of the internal ones that.
Yeah. Again, my biggest defense of why we may not need it for the CAPI keys is we've never had support for messing with ACLs on CNG, and I've seen one Stack Overflow question ever about CNG, and then one person who asked about doing ACLs in Core, and I'm like, well, don't use CAPI, and we never had the support for CNG, and that was my answer.
Yeah.
So,
Just in the interest of completeness, that's the entire set of derived classes from native whatever ACL is. So I'm sorry for getting the name of it, but like and in the whole scheme of these things too, eventually we need to write a better, particularly from the file system perspective, set of security APIs that people can do some sort of cross-platform ACLing, giving stuff to just me or all users and stuff like that. And I would want to cross the bridge of extending the other types once we've done more thinking about how we're actually going to implement that. Because there's also ACLing on Unix. Red Hat comes with that in the box, and eventually people are going to be desiring that sort of thing.
Yeah, you have to think about how we expose those guys.
Yeah, and definitely.
have-
I don't want to add stuff to the existing types. This is one of the other reasons why I don't want to do that, because I want to be,
right.
I want to be having that new thing and not have to have people try to figure out why that new thing is different than the old thing.
Right.
I could easily imagine inputs of simple ACL, like
Yeah.
me, read write, not me, no.
And then some abstraction that allows
But
you
ever getting that back seems hard, because the moment you hit a complex ACL, what's the simple ACL supposed to return? And so I could see them on create method things, but I don't know that. I mean, I would be very impressed to see a description of
Well,
how
that's
to make
but I
simple
think that
access.
there are other like a generic ACL base class thing that like allows you to like create one that's Windows specific or Unix specific for the standard one that people are using, and so anyway, it will come up more in the next few years as people continue to build more complicated solutions. So.
So, is there anything else we want to do for 3.1? I think Austin may have had one, but he couldn't make it today, so he's not there. Otherwise, I would just suggest we review this one really quick because it's a PR.
Is there anything else marked as
Nope.
3.1?
There was nothing marked. It was only like the only one that was marked as 3.1 was the first one that Jeremy had.
I only did that because like that was out of the bucket. That's the highest priority one.
Yeah. So these ones here, normally we don't do PRs, but given that it's such a small thing, it makes the most sense, I think. So somebody added the read-only modifiers to stuff in system drawing, and Stephen was asking me whether we want to review this, and I said probably the first few to get a sense for what we want to do here.
On point enablers.
So I mean, this is basically relevant for structs, right, where you want to avoid redundant copies, right? That's really what it boils down to.
I mean, I guess there's two questions here. One is this, like, what do we want as a goal for 3.1? And two is, what do we want as a goal for all of our structs?
Well, ignore 3.1 for a moment.
Okay.
I just put this on the list of like soon to be reviewed because it's a PR, and PRs don't get better when they sit longer, right? So that's why I just want to get over this one. That is for 5.4, 3.1. I don't care.
Right. So I know. I believe the current version of the compiler, if you write an autoprop, while we don't have it in our refs because we've been deleting these attributes back out of the refs, it actually writes it down as read-only get because it knows the get has no side effects because it generated it.
Yeah.
Right.
I do think that there is goodness in having the read-only, so we probably want to do it, but we probably really want to do a big push on all of the types that we have and try and make them be accurate. Like nullability, but actually important. And I'm glad I got a few laughs. But I think if we're doing one of them for 3.1, that, like, I don't know if we could even do everything for 3.1 if we wanted to. So maybe we would want to hold this until later.
Yeah, for 3.0 proper, we had basically done numerics vector because those were types that were frequently passed as in, and they are mutable structs that we couldn't mark read-only because of public fields. And I don't think we actually did any other things as explicitly read-only.
Well, I can really see it for this from a composability standpoint, right? Like people having points sitting in other structs that are not meant to be mutable is going to be pretty common. Yeah. Speaking from having sitting on one forms for the past few months.
And to your point, like I had just kind of a one-off comment with Jan the other day, that yeah, there's probably a lot of work to be done, like framework-wide, if we actually want to start these annotations. So that does, provide.
So when you say these annotations, you mean read-only or
read-only specifically?
I mean, one thing we probably should be doing. I don't know whether we can tool this in any reasonable fashion, but like read-only strikes me as this thing that touches pretty much everything that is a struct, right? Yep. And not just properties, probably also methods, right?
Yeah.
Right. You basically want to, you want to say anything that doesn't mutate the instance can be marked read-only. For getter properties, that's almost always the case if we just want to say it should be. I'd already done the discussion with Jared, and it is safe from the compiler's perspective to even mark getters as read-only if they're returning like value.lazy, because from the perspective of the external user, it is effectively read-only, because it's provided you're doing it thread safe and everything.
So you can lie effectively.
Yeah, so you can lie in a couple places. But
is the read-only it's only an attribute on the method, right?
Yeah.
So the runtime doesn't care about read-only.
Yeah, the runtime
because the compiler is
doesn't
what made the copy.
Yeah.
So I mean, we could seriously take every property
Well-
in the API. I mean, I guess we wouldn't want to do it if we know it's wrong, but like
Right,
we could
because
do an
the-
If we
easy.
know it's wrong, or we think that there is a reasonable chance that we might make it mutable for some, like, ideally, no, you'd never make a getter mutable, but like,
Yeah.
there are plenty of examples where we have mutable. Well, sorry, I've been working in some other code bases.
Like
There's
all-
even more in other code bases where you have mutable getters.
Well, 'cause-
So like nullable, for example, all of nullable is currently considered mutable because toString on the instance could theoretically mutate the thing. So nullable is a perfect example of we want to mark like everything except for toString as read-only because it won't mutate for everything else.
Why is toString mutating?
Because it's calling the instance method on the underlying T that could be a struct, and the person's implementation of toString could mutate.
Yeah. So basically,
The instance.
we tried making
Gotcha.
nullable to read only. Like,
Yeah.
just go through the code history and you'll see the comments.
Yeah. So one question I have, so like, it is a compatible change, right? So marking something as read-only that wasn't read-only before is fine.
Yes.
Right.
Presumably the other way
But
around.
the opposite direction is not.
Yeah,
Correct.
that's what I
Well,
was saying.
the,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
opposite is also the compiler does not consider it a breaking change. It is a behavioral change, however, in that you may now get a copy or a mutation where the compiler had emitted code thinking that you wouldn't or would have. So if you've marked something read-only, the compiler will elide a copy.
yeah. Right.
You then remove it and make it mutate. Code that had compiled against it will still run. It's not a binary or source breaking change, but you will now get a silent mutation.
But it's
Okay.
only the reverse. If you remove a read-only modifier.
Right.
Then
if you
your
remove it.
then your
Yeah.
perf suffers because you make a copy.
Yeah.
But
So it sounds to me that sounds like a perfect example of an analyzer that we probably want to run for ourselves. Just looking at your methods and saying, look, you're not doing any modifications. It's a struct. You may want to mark it as read-only,
Yeah.
and then maybe use that thing to actually prepare a PR across the board with that.
Yeah,
Well-
and then go and review it like we did with Nullable. Take
Yeah.
a couple hours and say like, oh, this one we might want to mutate in the future.
Yeah.
How many
I-
public structs do we actually have in the framework?
Not
Is-
that many.
Probably in the order of 100. Would be my
It's
guess.
not too bad.
No, it's not. It's like, and probably the 90% of them are immutable, right? Because we
Yeah.
basically said don't mess with this.
because and then the ones
Except for
that
two.
are mutable tend to be super struct enumerators.
There's quite a bit of value in this for these ones too.
Yeah.
Particularly like you have to think hard on point where people are probably getting a lot
Yeah,
more
point
copies
sits in
than-
rec sits in something else, right? Like, yeah.
Well, I mean, like I had a
Manipulating
PR
points.
yesterday that Levi paid more attention than I did, and he's like, "You took a thing by in and you called a method on it. Well, it has read-write fields because it lets someone create it with field rights, and that made a copy. Damn it!" So I deleted all of the places I used the word in because I'll just observe the copy. So, yeah, so I mean, like we should do this.
I'm just
We probably
asking if
wanna do it
there's
holistically.
value. Like you said, it's rather constrained. I mean, are we going to be pushing this too far back by like doing them all at once, or
Well, I mean, like to me, there's two things, right? Here's a PR, right? So we can either decide we just close this PR and say we just do it holistically across the board. That's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is we just merge the PR and then do the rest later. That's also doable. Because I mean, these PRs would just accumulate merge conflicts if we don't take them, right?
I think if we were to take one for 2.1,
Ignore the versioning. I just want to make
Or,
a decision
yeah.
on the PR in principle,
Yeah.
like whether it goes into the 3.1 branch or the 5.01. I'm just trying to decide, like, what do we do with this PR? Are we letting this in, or are we saying, no,
I think
let's do a holistic
fine
process?
to just like I would say it's completely fine to do it piecemeal.
Yeah.
With an eventual goal to like make sure we've done an entire pass and there's
Yes.
an issue tracking that.
Yeah.
For it's because if we have specific use cases, then why block getting that in?
Which is basically what we do for nullable, right? We basically say we will merge nullable things and then we do a diff after the fact,
Right.
because otherwise you can never make progress.
sounds
Well,
good
but
to me.
nullable is being tracked with a project plan, and if anybody jumps off the plan, we ask them not to
Right.
Although
and undo their work.
I would say if we're doing this and we're going to take it to shift room, I would strongly say we might want to consider nullable of T as one other thing we should say. Let's review this. Let's put it in.
Yeah, if we're doing
We
anything,
try to.
if we're doing anything for 3.1 with read-only modifiers, nullable of T would be the one to do it on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember, we did try to do that for 3.0. It's just due to circumstances we had to back it out.
Sure.
And-
Like I knew why that.
Because we introduced a breaking change.
Yeah.
By making it readable. Whoops.
The real question is, who was mutating their instance in a call to string?
There was actually a legitimate scenario in there.
So does anybody feel strongly that this should be in 3.1? Because I mean, I would just default to its 5.0 unless somebody.
Yeah,
proves me
unless
otherwise.
someone has a critical scenario, this is just system drawing, so I don't think it's
Yeah, I-
3-1.
Well, I mean, we don't have much time left, and I haven't like, if this was being like presented as like, oh, we did this, and like, you know, the WinForms apps run much faster. I don't think that we don't. I doubt that that.
Because the only place that this is going to matter is if somebody has if they're walking through this on a read-only field or a read-only local, if they declare one of those, or in, which, as in the ref read-only ref, whichever way it is. Those are the only places that these annotations are going to matter. I don't think point is very likely to be hitting any of them yet. So it's
no,
not-
you just can't write that code.
It wouldn't
yet.
be critical.
You can't write it. You can't write the encode without this, right? So,
Right.
which is fine. So I agree. I think that there's 5.0,
Yeah.
unless somebody else comes up with a reason.
Do we have a tracking issue for read-only modifiers anywhere? We probably don't.
Yeah, if you just look for created by me, you'll find it somewhere in that list.
So I know that the compiler
Perfect. Yeah.
supports this. The only docs that we have on it right now are doing read-only on the entire struct type. Has this cleared the language stuff? Is it in, or is it like
No,
currently
it's shipped with
exploring?
8.
What do you mean cleared the language stuff?
Read only.
We let the compiler do things that then we yank out at some point.
So did read only ship?
So did
Yeah,
read-only?
Read-only actually shipped.
Okay, then
Yeah.
they need to update the read-only modifier documentation because it only talks about the one on structs and not on.
I don't think really
numbers.
many of the new language features are, many of the minor language features are properly documented yet.
I just got through the when you're declaring structs guidelines, and I added the make it read only if you can. And since I couldn't find the make your members read only if your struct wasn't, I didn't write that down.
Okay.
So
Now you can.
now I know I can go back and write that down. Because like ref structs were an attribute ref like when they first got added, and then we changed the language, and then we changed the flow analysis of the stack expands, and so we definitely let the compilers do things, and we can see things that haven't actually shipped. And
Alright, then let me just put this guy in here. Alright, so I marked an API for approve, which is weird on a PR, but I will not mess with the no merge label because I don't know what the bar for that one is. But I marked UA issue for 5.0 though because it was in the future milestone, and then now that we said we merged changes to read only, we should definitely do a pause before we ship. Alright, then unless anybody has anything else, that would be it for today.
I've got nothing for 3.1.
Well, do you have anything urgent that can't wait until we do the next pass, which would be not next Tuesday, but the Tuesday after, because next Tuesday we do forgot.
Telemetry.
Open telemetry, that's right. Alright, then this is it.
And then after that, more frame stuff.
Yeah, probably.
So it'll be 3 weeks before we have another API review.
Basically.
Speaking of
22 is the first
API
one.
reviews, there's some more ARM intrinsics that we need to review to help unblock that work from the ARM side.
is it ready right now?
No, we're working on getting it ready, and it will definitely be ready if we schedule it for like a month out or something.
Yeah. I mean, the next one is 12th. Sorry, 22, which is 12 days from now, so we will. So it's not quite
Can we just quickly like approve the one that you had opened up, skip local init or something?
Skipping it.
Arg.
Nah, we do it right. All right. Thanks, folks online.